Thank you for joining us today for the library's virtual programming. Our guest today is Andrea Orr. She is owner of Milner and Orr Funeral Home. For over 150 years, Milner and Orr has provided service to our community. Today, Andrea will be discussing grieving and funeral services during the COVID virus time. Let's welcome Andrea. We're glad you're here today, Andrea. Welcome.
I'll talk a little bit about what is going on during this time of COVID with families, with funerals, and with the grief that they're going through in such a tumultuous time. You know, no matter what time it is of the year, no matter what's going on in our world, families still lose loved ones and families still grieve. And we've seen that no different during this period. It's just been a little bit more compounded because they don't have the support around them that we usually see with families when they go through services. They've lost friends, they've lost loved ones, they've lost spouses, they've lost children. And in a normal scene for a funeral service, you'll have a lot of visitors at the funeral. It will be not only their immediate family, but it'll be friends. It will be coworkers. It'll be people that went to school with them, people that go to church with them. And the families gain a lot of support from having the people that cared about their loved one as well as the ones who care about them to be there and support them during that time. And that's been one of the hardest things that we've seen for families is not having that support around them. So let me talk a little bit first, we'll get back to that, but let me talk a little bit first about what we do even when it's not COVID. We are here as funeral homes, all funeral homes are here to serve families in their crisis and to help them get through those first few days after the loss of a loved one. We always are here to follow health and guidelines. COVID is nothing unusual in the fact of being protective for our health of our staff and our visitors. A lot of different viruses and different diseases can be communicable. So we are very careful throughout every year to make sure that we keep our facilities clean and that we keep our staff protected for many different illnesses. We do believe it's always important for families to spend time with the body of the deceased after they've lost them, whether it's cremation or burial, just to have that closure and that time to say goodbye. Those are things that normally happen before COVID and still are happening in COVID. You know, families have had funerals for years. They go back to about 60,000 years was the first documented funeral service. And they do that because they want to honor the person that they've lost and they want to support each other. So a funeral is just part of the normal grieving process that gets it started. What it does, a funeral will give people the chance to come support each other, get through the burial, and then they will start going down the road of grief, their journey. And a lot of families during this time are concerned about how do they honor their loved one during an uncertain time like COVID. One of the first things that families will say to us when we're at the hospital or we're at the home and they've passed is families will ask us, what are we going to do? What can we have? They're very anxious and they are very relieved when they find out that we've set in place several different things that we will do to help them get through this time. The state of Kentucky has changed and continues to change weekly on what funeral homes are allowed during this period. We are monitoring that usually a couple times a week, talking to our state association to find out what the new rules are regarding funeral homes. The restrictions that have been placed on funerals over the last few weeks have been to restrict visitors to immediate family only. That's a very hard one because immediate families can be large. You could have 40, 50 people in the immediate family, or you could have 4 or 5. But the thing that's been the toughest to get through is that the state has asked us to limit the size of our gathering to 10 persons or less. No food has been allowed in the facility. Funeral directors are not allowed to park cars anymore. We're not allowed to hug and to give handshakes, which has been very hard for me, and it's been hard for our family and staff because we know so many of the families we serve, and not to be able to reach out and give them a hug or shake their hand during this time has been hard, and many of us have, I'm afraid, broke the rule and given a hug every now and then. We do clean the facility very well, at least twice a day. And then we've done something we've never done before, and that is make arrangements online. We make them by the phone. We can do Zoom. We can just talk to them on the phone and guide them through our website, where we have entered some COVID information that they can fill out on their loved one, especially if they're nervous. A lot of people that have come in, the loved ones that are here to make arrangements might have their health compromised. So we are very careful to give them that option. Now, sometimes that even if we do it online or by the phone, the family still does have to stop by to bring clothing or photos, and we usually let them bring those in, and then we let them sit for a couple hours before we remove them. So we try to take a lot of extra precautions. When the funeral directors are called to the scene, there's a lot of extra safety measures that we've got in place to try to keep our guys as safe as possible. So these are the changes that we've been dealing with. It's very different. One other thing that we do, it's called Safe Service Assistant. And this is not really dealing with the actual service, but it might be after the service or during pre-need arrangements. We offer to let people come by or make a phone call. We'll drop items off to them, such as a video that they've requested or death certificates. We do all that. We can drop them in an envelope by their porch where they don't have to get out. So we've done a lot of that. The new guidelines that just came out this week are good news, is that we are going to be able to increase the number of people. And the number of people now will go up to 33% capacity of your funeral establishment. And so that's very good news for our family and our funeral homes, because most of them have really large chapels. Such Paducah can hold 500 people plus. So we're looking at a third of that. So I think we're going to be able to really offer the families to have all of their family, their extended family, and some friends here. They do want us to encourage 6 feet apart. So we'll be marking the carpet with 6-foot markers. No food and drinks. We'll continue to wear masks, and we'll continue to clean. So that was good news for our families this week from the state of Kentucky. But you know, when all of this hit, we said to ourselves, we had a board meeting, and we discussed, what are we going to do for families? You know, it seems like all we're doing is saying no. No, you can't have food. No, you can't have more than 10 people. So we really searched hard to find a way to start saying yes, because we felt like our families were giving up so much to help protect the safety of the public that we wanted to do something special for them. That's why we developed on our website, we immediately the first week started posting COVID updates for the Milner and Orr funeral homes to let people know what we were doing. We also put the biographical information for COVID funeral arrangements, where you can make those online, as well as being able to select your casket on our website. These were things we did immediately to try to make it helpful for the families when we were starting out. You will see that we have posters all around the funeral home here, just reminding people of what they need to do to keep safe and to help keep everyone else safe at the funeral home. And then we started looking at the fact of what would we do if we were that family and our coworkers and friends and extended friends could not attend the visitation. And it's a little story that it goes along with our new program called Hugs from Home. And one of our best friends passed away back in the fall. And I was talking to his wife when all of COVID hit. And I said, you know, you had a huge visitation. You had a lot of people there. What would you miss if you found out that we could have only allowed 10 people to be at the funeral home? And she said, you know, I think it would be that I wouldn't miss my immediate family and closest friends, because they would either be at the funeral home or the home. But what I would have missed out on was talking to people that he had worked with or gone to church with, or they'd known him in high school, because they told me stories and they gave me little bits of information about my husband I didn't know. And it's those extended members of the community and their comments that I would have really, really missed. And so she and I sat there for a couple hours on the phone one night, and I said, you got to help me figure out something. We've got to do something for our families. And we started, talking about leaving a message for them, which we already do on our website, but we wanted something more visual. And throughout the 2 hours of talking, we came up with Hugs from Home. And Hugs from Home has been going on now for almost 2 months. We got busy, got it underway within a week. And so what it is that the community has been encouraged to go on our website and leave each family a hug. What they do is they put in the deceased name, then they share a memory, or they share something that they know about the loved one that's passed away. And then we take those messages, come into us, and we write those messages out, and we attach the hug to a white helium balloon. So the helium balloons then are scattered throughout our chapel as the families come in. We shared our program that first week with a group of funeral directors that go across the country. And believe it or not, we have heard anywhere from 35 to 40 other funeral homes in all different states have taken up the Hugs from Home. We sent them all of our information because we wanted to let every funeral home in every area be able to offer and do something nice for their families during this time. We also had 3 from Australia that contacted us wanting permission to use the program. So we've been really excited to see a lot of pictures in the newspaper from other states. We've seen video, a TV report in Iowa, and the funeral director had the balloons in the background. So it was pretty exciting to us that we were able not only to help our families, but we were able to help families in other areas of the United States. So our Hugs from Home, like I said, on the next screen, you'll see where we're handwriting the hugs. We have a young girl, Caitlin, and she's a student, and she's been our balloon girl during this. And she, along with a lot of the other staff, helps get the messages. We handwrite them, we attach them to the balloon. Some days we will have over 200 balloons going to different locations. And she's been very good to help us. I've had friends come in, even the friend who helped come up with Hugs from Home, Vicki, she came and she's helped us with the balloons. So we get the balloons all together, we tie them up together till we can get them to the funeral home. And then you'll see on the next page what it looks like in one of our chapels. Now, we intended to, my first initial reaction was to tie the balloons in a bunch like we normally see. But our son-in-law did it for the first time before we'd gotten to present the balloons, and he tied them around the chapel like we've got it here in the picture. And it was so overwhelming because it really feels like when you walk in that these balloons are representing that person that sent the message. And on the next page, you'll see how many of them. Sometimes there's, 60, 70 balloons. And this was the view here of our first family that walked in and saw the balloons. And I'll have to tell you that many times that I've opened the doors to the chapel, and even family members that know that there's going to be balloons, but especially the family members that don't know it, they usually gasp and they're overwhelmed that those people are there with them in spirit. It's been a very, very powerful aid to help our families through this time. On the next page, I think we've got a video of the balloons. It was a reminder to the families of how much people loved them, cared for them, wanted them to know that they were thinking about them in this time. So the white balloons are peppered all the way around the chapel. There you'll see a little bit of the video footage. So what we do is we see the families just walk around and they quietly read the messages, because you've got to remember there's only, at that time, there's probably 8 to 10 people. And so it's very quiet in there. We're all used to having a large visitation with lots of talking and visiting and sharing and hugging. And so it's a little bit different now than it was. And so the balloons tend to sort of help that out. That gives them a quiet time to just read their messages. After we got into the program, we started keeping up with the number of balloons that we are purchasing and blowing up here at the funeral home and providing. And we are up over 2,000, well over 2,000. We're probably going to be reaching the 3,000 mark by the end of May in balloons that our families have received. And they've not received them from us. They've received them from the public, from their friends. And I can't thank the public enough for what they've done for these families with these messages. It's just it's a sweet time for the families. This was the yes we were looking for in the days of no, you can't do this, no, you can't do that. But we have had over 2,000 balloons given to the families. They're there early in the morning and until late at night. And then we started noticing that our funeral directors took it upon themselves to say, let's start doing balloon releases with them. And I believe just about every single family has participated in this. I think this is a video here. You should be able to see the video footage of one of our balloon releases. The minister's counting now, and now they're getting ready to release them. That has been so beautiful and so powerful, and something came out of it a little that we didn't even expect. Is before we do the balloon release, we allow the family members there, the intimate setting at the cemetery, to say a few words, and it's been very, very beautiful, the words that they've shared with each other as the balloons drifted higher and higher. One family sang, the minister had mentioned in the service that their mother loved the song, "You Are My Sunshine." And so as soon as the balloons were released, they started quietly singing, "You Are My Sunshine," and the balloons kept going farther and farther and farther. And that was such a beautiful memory for them. So I was really surprised at how much people love the balloon releases. A lot of times the children will let theirs go, then the grandchildren, and then the great-grandchildren. So it's a beautiful thing. With our Hugs from Home program, another program that we have seen is, we call them memory parades or memorial parades, and those are sort of organically developed by different groups. I know some of the churches, every time a member is here at the funeral home and the church family can't be here with them, they line Memorial Drive up with cars and posters and balloons. And the family comes out to go to the cemetery, and they're just overwhelmed at that support. The memorial parades have been held here at the funeral home. They've been held on the way to the cemetery. They've been held at the cemetery when we pull in. There'll be, tens of cars parked everywhere with balloons and people standing out by the car and just being there to support the family. We have seen some towns that we go through. If we go through the center of town, the Port Square, if we have to go through it for burial, a lot of times some of the organizations are lining the street. Maybe it's a church, maybe it's just the people of that town will line the streets. And that really reminds me of Europe and the way they do it over there still, how they line the street on the way to the cemetery. So that's been very positive for our families. We, during this period, which we always do, we have our comfort dog that we offer free of charge for families. It's Jam. Jam is a Labrador Retriever. This is not the picture of Jam here. This is just one of our website pictures, but Jam can be brought in, especially when there's children or grandchildren involved, as somewhat of a positive distraction for the families and for the children in the family. One other thing that we've done is, since everyone during COVID was not allowed to have a public service, they had to take a private service that we began in the very beginning of COVID. And at our funeral home, we have told families that anyone who wants to come back after COVID, the ban is lifted, that we will be welcome. We'll be glad to help them plan a public service at no cost to them, no added cost. So we know of several that are going to take that offer. One is planning a large memorial service for their loved one at one of the gymnasiums that she taught at the high school. So that's going to be a beautiful service. And the family felt like so many of our students and coworkers didn't get to participate and didn't get to honor her life like they know that they would want. So we're going to have that public service coming up this summer. So some families are definitely have that in their mind to do it. Others may not. Others have gone through the process. One thing that we have heard is that at the end of the day, if we limit it to 10 people, and that's not what they wanted, and that's not what they would have done under a normal circumstance, they almost always say that there was something so sweet and so intimate about just having her children and grandchildren, or maybe, his best friend got to come, and the wife and the children. And they'll say at the end of it, it's hard not having our extended family here, but we've liked just the sweet time that we've had with our loved ones. So that just speaks to the human heart and the human spirit and how good people are and how people want to find the good in anything that comes along to them. So that was been very impressive. But let's talk a little bit about grief. One of the things that happened when my mom passed away is that I had friends stop by with food, and people came by with cards and gifts and just wanted to come by and check on us to see how we were doing. And some of the families haven't gotten to receive that. Some people, don't feel comfortable receiving food at this time. So it's just something that I've mentioned in the beginning is hard. You don't really want to have to go through it alone. And so I thought about some things that maybe you guys out in the public, the funeral's going on, and now you're wanting to know what else can I do to help my friends or a family member go through this grieving period after COVID. And I thought these are some things that we could do that don't necessarily take one-on-one direct contact, and that's calling and texting them. I have people that I have served, families that I still text them once a month just to check on them, see how they're doing, because I know that the weeks and months after a service can be awfully lonely. Send them a card. That's old-fashioned, but people still love to get cards. Of course, send them a hug from home on our website. Order flowers. A lot of people think the florists are closed, and they're not. They can't just have walk-in traffic, and that may have eased up this week, but they're still available by phone. Drop carry-out food by their home. If they're afraid of eating, home-cooked food, order them a dinner and take that by. It's really hard to eat and to prepare your meal when you're grieving. Of course, pray daily for them and for their grief. Maybe share with them scripture, poems, photos on social media, especially if you've got a sweet photo of their loved one. I had a man tell me the other day, I'd sent him a picture of his mother, that's a cousin of mine, and he said, I've never seen that picture. And she's been gone about 20 years, and every picture that we've never seen before of our loved ones really becomes a new memory for us, because we get to look at the picture and learn a little bit more about that person. So, dig in your photo albums or in your phone and send those pictures to them. They're eager to find out more and see more about their loved ones. Maybe take them for a drive. Now, this is one-on-one contact, but if it's somebody that you've been with throughout COVID, or maybe you're a family member, pick your mom up and take her for a drive. I know a couple did that during the Dogwood Festival, and that was a great thing to do. So take them down to look at the river. Take a drive up to the dam area, but just get them out. It's a hard time to be kept in the house during this period. I guess that's about it as far as what we're doing. We are excited about being able to go back to a lot of people at the funerals again. That will start on the 20th, that you'll start seeing visitations listed again in the newspaper. I encourage you, if you feel nervous about coming to the funeral home, if you're worried about your health, if you're sick, do not come. We would rather you stay home and not endanger anyone here at the funeral home or our families. But if you're not sick and you're worried about getting something, wear a mask to the funeral home. We highly encourage that. Wear gloves. That's quite all right. Keep your distance. And just think about being here in presence for the families during this next stage of opening. continue to send them hugs from home. We're not going to stop the program for a while. We're going to go through, I know, the month of June, and we're going to reevaluate at that point if we've gotten to go back to our regular services and everyone is invited back to the funeral home and it's unlimited, and then we'll take a look at the program then. But we just encourage you to reach out and help these families as much as possible and realize what's going on, not only with their loss, but with the loss of what a traditional funeral used to look like. So thank you so much for the time, and I appreciate that.
Andrea, thanks for a great presentation. Does anyone have any questions? Please send them to Andrea. She'd be glad to respond. Andrea, I do have one question that I did a little research and I noticed that Milner and Orr have been in business for 150 years. Has anything like this happened in the past in the history, or is this pretty new to do these types of measures, or have there been other things throughout history that have been, different kinds of
our children work here with us, and we laugh because it seems like every time they tell us something unusual has happened, we laugh because it's happened to us. This is the first thing that we have been through as a family-owned funeral home that we've not experienced it. Our children are experiencing something for the first time with us. As far as I know, we would have been involved when the pandemic hit in the early 1900s. We still have our horse-drawn hearse from when my grandfather and my great-grandfather used to, use it to go from county to county, which used to take several hours to do that. For burials or to pick someone up who had passed away. I don't have any direct knowledge of how they dealt with the pandemic earlier before, but I know that my husband and I have never been through anything quite this severe. We did go through the AIDS crisis, which was, a scare for our staff, and we did a lot of training, and that's when we got very familiar with the PPEs and universal precautions. And we still believe in that today because we don't know what is out there yet. We don't know who has what disease, so you have to treat everyone as it. But really, this is unprecedented as far as I know. Never heard of funeral homes closing. I mean, the ice storm was about as severe as we'd ever been through, and that was for 5 or 6 days. So this has just been very, very different.
Does anyone else have any questions for Andrea while she's here with us? We really appreciate this insightful presentation. I appreciate some of the things we learned. It was just very informative, very interesting. I'm very proud of the great job that you've done in our community.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you for having me, and just continue to pray and support the families all over the community, including Western Kentucky. There's a lot, what's so sad about this time is you still lose 12-year-olds, you still lose 14-year-olds, you lose young people, 44-year-old teachers. It's not just, we hear a lot about COVID taking older people. That's true, but there are still young people passing away, and those families need our support so bad during a period like this.
We are going to go ahead and close out, but we're going to be around for just a few moments, or for maybe 5 to 10 minutes if anybody has any questions. And I want to remind you of the next upcoming McLib Live, which is Reframing the Value of Health with our guest, Eric from Siva Fitness. We look forward to his presentation. We'll hope you'll join us for this one. We're going to hang around just a little bit longer if anybody has any questions. And thank you again, Andrea. It was a pleasure to have you as a guest today.
Thank you so much.